King George County Board of Supervisors to order. Ask Mr. Howard to lead us in the invocation and Ms. Bravo to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we pause tonight to acknowledge your presence and to thank you for our many blessings. We thank you for the privilege we have as board members to serve the citizens of King George County. We thank you for the men and women in uniform serving around the world to protect our freedoms. Heavenly Father, we ask that you guide us as we deliberate the issues before us tonight. May our decisions be pleasing in your sight and beneficial to all of our citizens. These and all things we ask in your holy name. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, first order of business will be appoint newly elected members of the King George County Service Authority Board of Directors. And they'd be Mr. Siddell Brooks and Mr. James Howard. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and properly seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries. We have another motion to appoint newly elected members of the King George County Wireless Authority Board of Directors, namely Mr. Siddell Brooks and James Howard.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and properly seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries. At this time, I'm going to recess the King George County Board of Supervisors. And would call to order the Wireless Authority Board of Directors. Mr. Howard, do you have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move the Board of Directors ratify, confirm, and approve actions taken at the previous meeting held on Tuesday, January the 7th, 2014.
Second.
Motion's been made and properly seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Are there any amendments to the agenda?
No, sir.
Thank you. This time we'll open the floor for public comment from the Wireless Authority Board of Directors. We remind people that we'll limit remarks to 3 minutes so everyone has a chance to speak.
Good evening. My name is Renee Parker. I live at 7144 Peppermill Road in the James Monroe District. My comment tonight is related to your agenda packet and the minutes from your September 3rd Wireless Authority meeting. Specifically, where one member of your board brought up the possibility of meeting with the Verizon personnel from Verizon and then back and forth on whether that was a good idea or whatnot. I'm not going to assume that nothing has happened on the part of your board since your own board member suggested a meeting. I can only speak for what I've seen and heard personally. The group of citizens that you're familiar with now that have met several times to research the wireless issue in our county have come up with viable options at little or no cost to the county. I would ask that if you follow through on your intent to put together a technical committee, you not only begin by applauding the effort of this committee or this group of citizens, but have your committee begin at the point the group of citizens have progressed to. It would certainly eliminate the possibility of redundant work and possibly supply a solution to the county in a timely manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Parker.
Board. Barbara Wagner from Lambs Creek Church Road, James Monroe District. Don't have a lot to pass along to you along the lines of our group. However, we are still pursuing the options that she's speaking of. I'm hoping that the addition of Mr. Brooks, Mr. Howard on this new board, or continuing on the same board, means that you all are stepping up and going to be taking part and doing something to get some internet coverage for our county, for our schools, and for our people. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wagner. Seeing no other public comment, I'll bring it back to the members of the board. Any reports?
Just, if I could, Ms. Chairman, I was going to comment on Ms. Parker's comment there. Yeah, we had
Renee, you may have heard we had additional dialogue in regards to the Verizon rep and the practicality of getting them here at subsequent meetings. And we're all over taking advantage of the work that's being done by the committee that Ms. Wagner referenced as well. We've talked about that over the last couple of meetings. So when we get stood up and running there, we look forward to taking advantage of that and partnering there. So thank you.
I think we need to probably look, I had talked about it prior to being reelected, that we need to allow the public to get more involved with the Wireless Authority, and seeing that this group is together and it seems like they're organized, they've got a lot of stuff going on for them. I think it'd be good if we can incorporate to what we're trying to do and get them on board as like a team, so we can work together to see how these efforts can become reality. So I know we've talked about it, but we have never set a time that we could actually sit down and discuss this on how we're gonna put this into reality. I think that's something we need to consider, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Mr. Brooks, that'll be coming up tonight. The county administrator has a draft charter for that under the Board of Supervisors, so we have a broader platform to look at, so we're not restricted to any specific type of connection at this point. But yes, sir, that we all agreed on that. Entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
Chairman, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion's been made and probably seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries. Managers report.
No report.
Thank you. I don't think we have any other business for the Wireless Authority. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and probably seconded. We all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. So at this time, I'll call to order the Service Authority Board of Directors and ask for a motion of ratification.
Mr. Chairman, I move the Board of Directors ratify, confirm, and approve actions taken at the previous meeting held on Tuesday, January 7th, 2014.
Second.
Motion's been made and probably seconded. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, do you think it's right that maybe we should tell the public that what we're doing, or give them an explanation of what happened, reason why we're doing this?
It's to make those actions legal, since we had not formally appointed you and Mr. Howard to these two boards. So it's an administrative function to make sure everything stays legal. So I have a motion. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries. Any amendments to the agenda?
No, sir.
This time I'll open up the floor for public comment for the Service Authority Board of Directors. Again, we'll limit our remarks to 3 minutes, so everyone will have an opportunity to speak if they wish. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to reports of members of the board.
No problem, Mr. Chairman.
Any reports?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Hold on, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
Chairman, move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion's been made and properly seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries. County Attorney, any report?
No report at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. This time we have action items. Mr. Thomas?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The action item for this evening is to authorize a budget fund transfer and appropriation of $90,710 from the WQIF reimbursement funds to the Dahlgren wastewater treatment plant nutrient upgrade project. The transfer will allow for the construction administration, technical inspection services, equipment and plant startup when the plan is completed. The Service Authority needs to upgrade the Dahlgren wastewater treatment plant to more consistently and efficiently remove nitrogen and phosphorus from the effluent. This will allow for consistent compliance with the VPDS permit and also the Chesapeake Bay general permits that we have. The project is a result of a DEQ special order of consent. Service Authority, we've previously submitted applications for DEQ for low-interest loans. We also included an application for WQIF grants. Both of those have been verbally approved. Right now, DEQ on both sides, the loan folks and the WQIF folks, are hammering out how much grant we're going to get. We're actually, we've been informed that we're going to get a little bit more than we had actually requested. So that will reduce the loan amount. But we should be seeing those final numbers here shortly. But the total amount of the applications combined was $2,228,340. The WQIF reimbursement balance is $630,405. If approved, the budget transfer will reduce this available fund balance to $539,695. I would like to say that the work entailed with this transfer and also with the original design of the plant, all of that is reimbursable through the loan and the grant. So our intent is when we close on the loan, we'll get reimbursed for these dollars that we've transferred, and then we'll come back before you and we'll transfer them back to the original WQIF funds. And we've included a copy of the budget transfer form as well.
So this is basically to let us get started.
Yes, sir.
While the paperwork follows. What's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I'd move that we approve the fund transfer in the amount of $90,710 as presented.
Motion's been made and probably seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries.
I also need to do a second motion, Mr. Chairman, to allow him to proceed.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we appropriate that $90,710 for the construction administration services, technical inspections, and plant startup services for the nutrient upgrade project as presented, and also authorize the general manager to issue purchase orders accordingly to Draper Aid and Associates.
Motion's been made and probably seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, motion carries. Department of Finance, Robin, financial status updates.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. The spreadsheet you have before you is a summary of the actual revenues and expenditures through December. Total revenues, $1,794,200. Expenditures, $1,847,984. I am in the process of working on projections through year end, and I'll be reporting that to you at the second meeting in February. I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
So right now, it's tracking about what we had expected.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for Robin? Thank you.
Yep.
General Manager's report.
I have 3 items to report on this evening for the General Manager's report, kind of to dovetail with Robin's financial update. I think last year we started, every time we were doing the financial updates, I would try to come before you and give you kind of where we are with connections for the current fiscal year. So the first item tonight is the connection update for this current fiscal year. First of all, the budget included 35 full-service connections, both water and sewer, for residential. It also included 10 water-only connections for residential, and it included 3 full-service commercial connections. As of today, actually, we have residential connections. We've had 23 full-service connections. We've had 1 water-only, and we've had 1 sewer-only. And on the commercial side, we've had 1 water-only commercial, and we've had 1 water and sewer commercial. So that puts us for the year at a total of 27 connections.
Any questions for Mr. Thomas on that?
The second item this evening is just to kind of update you on something you may have heard, is that there was a temporary water outage in Fairview Beach. That occurred January 9th, and that was a result of the contractor. He did find a service line, and he actually pulled it away from the old transite pipe. Unfortunately, that service line was located close to well house number 3. Well house number 3, since well house number 2 is the one we're rebuilding, well house number 3 is the only provider of water currently to Fairview. So there were no valves to valve it off. So we actually had to shut down all of Fairview Beach. The good news is we had appropriate fittings that we could give to the contractor, and the contractor made the repairs within 2 hours. So service was returned, and I think we only received one complaint. The third issue is something I had mentioned to Ms. Bravo and Mr. Grzyka. This current billing cycle, there was a billing issue involved in the Bright system, which is our billing system. It only affected a few of the books or a few of the service areas in the county. Those service areas are Dahlgren, Monmouth, Chatham Village, and Westbury. And the problem was discovered during the edits of the bills. Basically what was happening is the current read for the bill was not transferring over as the previous read. We worked through Bright. Bright gave told us basically what to do, and so we physically, manually put in the read and the volume for the billing cycle, and then we did the final prints on the bills. However, when the bills went out, they didn't take the current read, so they brought over the previous read, and they also brought over the date of the previous read. So the bill looks like it was for 4 months, but it was actually for the 2-month cycle. And if you look at the credits and the charges, it all adds up. It shows the previous charges have been credited, and it just shows that amount. So the dollar figure on the bill is correct, and the volume on the bill is correct. Since that time, we've gone back, went back into the system. Bright has corrected it, so all the history is returned. So if any customers have any issues with what they were billed for, we can certainly give them that history, show them the read in the volume, and show them how the charges were calculated, that they are correct. And I believe Ms. Bravo checked her bill, and it added up. So, any questions?
Bravo.
I would just like to say thank you very much for being proactive and contacting me to inform me of the situation. Because of that, I was able to, like you said, check my own bill against the previous bill and understand the situation. So I was prepared in the event I received any phone calls, but it also gave me the opportunity to be proactive and put the information out on my supervisor Facebook page in hopes of eliminating some of the unnecessary phone calls from citizens. I personally haven't received any phone calls relative to it, and hopefully you haven't received too many.
We've received a handful, maybe 15 or so. And one last item that I didn't intend to mention, but as of this evening, we've received several phone calls about freezing water lines. A lot of those calls that we've received, probably about 75% of them were on the meter. So the meter sets have actually been freezing, so our crews have been going out and thawing out the meter sets. But there are other instances where customers, their service lines, and in particular their irrigation systems that weren't winterized, are freezing now. So you may be hearing about a lot of water leaks here shortly.
But if it's their personal water irrigation system that is freezing, that's not an issue for the service authority.
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
Yeah, the meter sets would be ours.
Yeah, I mean, we go out, I mean, if someone says they have a leak, we go out and we determine whether
Where
it's
the leak
ours
is.
or whether it's theirs.
Okay.
And if it's on their side, we show them, where the meter is, and we'll turn it off. We'll turn the meter off for them so they can fix it. But yeah, certainly, we're only taking care of the meters.
How many meters did you say that was that you had a problem with?
I think it was, with the freezing?
With freezing, yeah.
I think it's been about 10 total.
Yeah. Any other questions for Mr. Thomas? Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any other business for the Service Authority?
I'm gonna move to adjourn.
Motion's been made and properly seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. This time I'll reconvene the Board of Supervisors meeting. Are there any amendments to the agenda?
Yes, sir. The presentation by the Virginia Department of Minerals, Mines, and Energy, that would take place at the February 4th meeting.
Thank you. At this time, I'll open the floor for public comment. Again, remind everybody to try to limit their remarks to 3 minutes so everyone gets a chance to speak.
Again, in case it's a requirement. Renee Parker, 7144 Peppermill Road.
Can I ask you to pull the microphone a little bit so that and when everyone comes up to speak at public comment, that way when it's recorded for the television, the folks watching can hear you as well.
Just as a former school board member and a taxpaying citizen, I thought it might be nice to make sure that the lack of a new dishwasher at Potomac Elementary is mentioned at every one of your meetings. If the ecological aspect of using so much plastic and styrofoam is not an issue with you, I would expect the fact that the request has been in front of you for so long might mean something. They still need a dishwasher.
Thank you, Ms. Barker.
Hi. Good evening, Chairman Grazika and supervisors. My name is Sylvia Hudson. I live in Dahlgren District on St. Paul's Road. At the last board meeting, you were supposed to elect the 2014 chair and vice chairman of this board and do it in front of everyone here. But before the meeting even started, Mr. Grazika had already taken a place in the chairman's seat, cushioned Mr. Howard between him and Mr. Sisson, and removed Mr. Brooks to the junior seat, where I think Mr. Howard should be sitting right now. So you gentlemen made these decisions outside of this public forum. As has been so clearly stated in the recent Freelance Star editorial, giving an impression of conspiring before a meeting or making unilateral decisions is not an acceptable practice. As the article points out, if it smells rotten, it probably is. Mr. Grazika, Ms. Brabo has many times expressed an interest in serving on the GWRC committee. You denied her, saying that committee appointments were for one's full term of office. But yet, in the middle of your term, you handed it over on a silver platter to Mr. Howard. You also said that she was not selected for vice because one had to demonstrate leadership and earn that seat. How did you earn the chair on the first day of your first term, as reported in the journal? Mr. Sisson, at a time when you could have proved your independence from Mr. Grazika, you, the at-large, failed to do so. You've said many times at these meetings that you don't hear anyone complaining about your actions. Well, many people do complain, but they're afraid to do so in a public forum. Because of yours and Mr. Grazika's government and Navy-based positions, many residents are afraid to come forward for fear of retribution. Mr. Howard, do you really believe that you are up to date enough on current issues and ready to sit in the vice chair seat? Your previous terms don't help for the here and now, so don't say, I have the experience. As some might say, What have you done for us lately? Mr. Brooks, at some point, you started to believe that being on the winning side was more important than doing the right thing. You failed to support Ms. Brabo because you didn't think she had the votes. You should have done the right thing, regardless of who agreed with you. Later, you chastised the rest of the board for what you yourself wouldn't do. Left to only guess at a motive for this board's actions, is it because you don't want Supervisor Brabo gaining any of your power or more respect from the citizens leading into the 2015 election year? As a witness to what happened here at this last meeting, maybe we should let the citizens elect these two positions going forward. The way you have all treated the Dahlgren residents has been nothing but despicable. What are you going to do this dysfunctional board? Everyone knows what's been happening in King George, and it isn't pretty. What more is it going to take for all of you to work together for us, the people who put you in office to begin with? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hudson.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Evans. I live in the Hop Yard community. New to the King George area and not very well versed in how Board of Supervisors meetings take place, so I hope you'll bear with me with my disjointed comments. I know that this evening there was a reschedule for the person who's going to come speak to all of us about from the Department of Mines, Minerals and Energy, and I look forward to being at that meeting as well. But I did just want to comment on some of the very initial research I've done on fracking, because I know it's possibly going to be an issue in King George. I know that there's 12% of the leases in the Middle Peninsula are in King George County. So in my very initial research, some of the concerns I've come upon are the Department of Mines, Minerals, and Energy. It looks like all their research has been done on the Marcellus Shale Basin, which is totally different, I feel, from the Taylorsville Basin shale deposit that we have here. My concern, I spoke to this very nice gentleman at the Department of Mines, Minerals, and Energy today named Gary, who, after speaking at length, had assured me that there had never been a groundwater contamination during fracking. Well, that is the actual process of fracking, not necessarily the drilling or water contamination from these pits that apparently they bring all the water up and dump them into. So of course I am concerned for a type of groundwater contamination. I'm also concerned, I think a lot of people look at that word fracking and assume it covers the entire, from start to finish, and I guess it's just a specific, actually the act of extracting the gases, but in reality, I think there's a lot more that we need to fear from this drilling and natural gas. So of course my concerns are the contamination of our aquifer, the property values of course of my home and all the homes here in King George, if hydraulic fracking is allowed here in King George. My concerns that the Department of Minerals, Mining, and Energy will allow a permit even if you all, the Board of Supervisors, say no, and what we do and face that if that is a decision that you all make. I would love to see personally, but what happens if they come back and say, nope, we're going to allow this fracking? The disposal of these drilling fluids, are we going to allow land application? It just sounds like something, and again, I apologize. I'm nervous and this is all new to me, but these drilling fluids, I again spoke with Gary about that, and he was talking to me about the evaporation pits, and I just kind of trying to get an idea of what they put down in these holes to frack this gas out of. And he was like, well, it's gelled water. Well, what makes water gel? I don't know, and it doesn't sound good to me. It's a chemical, obviously. And, you know, I haven't done the research. I assume I know you all, I hope, will do your research. And that's all I have to say. I think there's a lot of people that are very concerned about this. I really hope that you all will take the time to listen. And I appreciate the fact that you are bringing in the Department of Mines, Mineral, and Energy, but I hope at the same time you'll bring in other people who have had a less than positive, a less than positive experience with fracking. I think that's important to hear both sides. Of course, DMME would love to see it here, and they say it's been fine for 50 years plus in that part of Virginia, but that part of Virginia, I assume, is, you know, Southwest Virginia. The land there is a lot different than it is here. So that's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Evans.
Hi, my name is Melissa Andrezi. I am also from Hopyard Farms, as I'm sure you'll hear from quite a few of us tonight. And I am also here on behalf of the issue of bringing fracking to King George. My family and I moved here in 2011. We moved from Northern Virginia, and we simply moved here to raise our 3 young boys in a less fast-paced neighborhood. We didn't move here because we wanted big shopping malls or all the things that Northern Virginia has to bring. We moved here because we liked the area. I personally have done some research on fracking. My uncle was a retired captain in the Coast Guard and speaks on fracking up in Washington, D.C. on a state and national level. So I've got a little bit of background, and I'm highly against it. I'm against the noise being here. I'm against the contamination of our water system. I'm against the earthquakes that have been known to be brought to areas that have this fracking. And I'm also against plummeting house values, to be quite honest. I can't speak for everybody in our neighborhood. Certainly, we've not had any official voting process, but I can tell you that on the behalf of my family, I understand that there's a revenue source here that is considered when bringing fracking to a county. And I can tell you on behalf of my county that I would my family, that I would much rather see our taxes increase, as much as I hate to say that, and I'm sure a lot of neighbors would hate to think of that. But the fact of the matter is that if it is a revenue source, that my family would much rather pay a little bit of a higher tax bill than to have these other issues brought into the area. Personally, we would not be willing to stay in King George County and would probably not think twice about moving if it is brought here. So I came tonight. I continue to follow the issue, and I continue to want to be educated in hopes that you guys can bring us the knowledge. But what knowledge that I have, I just don't see the positive in. And we would love to continue to raise our family here. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Mary Trout, and I'm from the Shallow District. Over 2 centuries ago, our founding fathers gave us a gift of the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution of the Commonwealth, and the Virginia Declaration of Rights. The spirit of these documents is that the elected officials at all levels of government work for the people. This form of rule allows for a free people that are not beholden to the government, rather that the government is beholden to the people. One right in particular that is granted in the Bill of Rights is the right of the people to petition the government for a readdress of grievances. At the last meeting, I made a statement to the fact that I'm concerned that there may be a lack of transparency in our county government because many officials in office here do not apparently and flatly refuse to use official government email accounts. The irony of events that happened in New Jersey over the past 2 weeks could be duplicated here in King George, but perhaps on a smaller but no less or important scale. Hence, wrong is wrong, regardless if it's a state agency representative or a King George elected official. My. My facts finding on King George elected and appointed officials are getting more and more interesting. And to think these facts could be even found by me without even submitting a FOIA request. Wait until the facts really start coming forward. In my statement, I never accused any official of performing any illegal activity. Rather, cited examples of why it is beneficial for our elected officials to be above board in their correspondence. When my comments were completed, Dale Sisson accused me of lying in my statement. Quote, "You are spreading lies." I reviewed my statement several times and the video, and I will stake my reputation on the fact that everything I said was truthful and honest. I think it is most inappropriate that elected officials make accusations on the record to discredit, tarnish the reputation of a citizen, especially when that citizen did not lie as accused by the supervisor. If a supervisor disagrees with a citizen, that allows for healthy debate, that all sides of an issue can be seen by those in attendance. When Dale Sisson stated I was spreading lies during my public comment during the last Board of Supervisors meeting, but never substantiated the accusations with facts. He is known and quoted very well in newspapers for saying, "Let's stick to the facts," though he never delivers on the facts. It was just told to me, also one very clear thing, that I'm getting closer to exposing the truth of unethical email usage by board members using private email accounts than I had thought. Also, too, I was told by Dale Sisson, I was inciting the crowd, quote unquote. Who knew that a simple hand clamping, no whistling, no stomping of feet in support of my fellow citizens could be considered threatening? Yes, after pondering this, I was inciting, per Webster Dictionary definition, citing, to stir, encourage, or urge on, stimulate, or prompt to action my fellow citizens who speak up for themselves. If the true words of the supervisor's bosses, we the people, disturb Sisson's iffy conscience, so be it. To which he went off on a random rant of how he paid for private email and he will never change it to the county server, even when doing business of the county. What happened here with your verbal slander last month is disgraceful and could not be tolerated by the electorate, we the people. I challenge Supervisor Sisson to tell me specifically what was it that I lied at the last meeting. And now on to Supervisor Howard and Gurzicka, and I apologize if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. You both have county email addresses, but have county staff forward business county to your work email addresses. How interesting that would be, possibly for your employers to know of such things. Now I'm on to fracking. On the subject of fracking,
Your 3 minutes is almost up, so can
Okay,
you summarize
yes.
that? Thank you.
let's reiterate to the board that I am not alone with the citizens of King George County. There's a website there's a page on Facebook, Say No to Fracking in King George, and another page, Eyes on King George. This board should not underestimate the intelligence, the skill, and the technical experiences that these citizens have. Just like I've been proven twice here, the demographics of King George are counting. It's not the founding family of 10 as it was hundreds of years ago. Things are changing. We are more educated and smarter. And all, no matter on your tenure, even though you have a long 4 years left, have a strong possibility of not sitting there anymore because lack of failure of doing your job.
Thank you, Ms. Trout.
Hello, my name is Jason Atkinson, and I also live at 6145 Hauser Drive in the Hop Yard subdivision. I've been a county resident for 7 years, and I've recently become aware of quite a few critical issues that I was previously unaware of facing King George, as far as the immense debt, the potential end of the landfill, and of course fracking that's been brought up several times here tonight. Clearly, I'm kind of new to the process, hearing some of the comments already here tonight, but in talking to other residents, there's definitely a perception that our elected representatives do not really welcome the involvement of citizens, nor go out and embrace that. Personally, I've been here 7 years, and I've only had 2 occasions to see or hear speak any of my representatives, and one was not even for my district. I'd like to challenge you guys to debunk that perception, involve the citizens, especially in these critical elements. We count on you guys to be leaders in these issues and to help guide us and educate us as well as yourselves. On the specific issue of fracking, there's a lot of information available both for and against, and it's a very controversial practice. Several things that have been brought up already. I would hope that you guys, as our representatives in the board making the ultimate decision, would avail yourselves of any and all information available in regards to this issue. There's several other things that hadn't been addressed, as far as required training of our first responders and wear and tear on our roads, setbacks, and other things to maintain our county's character. As far as the state legislation as well, with the drinking water, all these things are lagging behind the technology, and I would hope that we would exercise caution until these things have caught up. Personally, and specifically on that, I've seen an advertisement on one of the websites regarding a town hall meeting to include a speaker that found himself in a similar situation as yourself, as a supervisor on a board of supervisors considering fracking in their area in the state of Virginia. I would encourage all of you to attend and to avail yourself of the knowledge that that gentleman has to offer, as he's done quite a bit of the research that you probably need to avail yourself of as well. In conclusion, I would really like to see the members of the board engage the citizens of the county and encourage their involvement in these upcoming decisions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Atkinson.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for this opportunity. There's been a lot of articles.
Name, please.
I'm sorry, Jeff Bush, Jordan Lane, James Monroe District. There's been a lot of articles published in the papers, and there's been a lot of Facebook chatter between the last meeting over the seat for chairman and vice chairman. Whether what's reality or perception is reality. So instead of making accusations, I just simply pose you with this challenge. In order to ensure that every district is represented equally over the terms, is there a way something can be put in writing that removes a personal decision or a perceived agenda, and it's a rotation, that it goes from one district to one district and so on into perpetuity? That way there's no voting on it. You already know this district is going to be sitting in the chairman's seat in this year, and it's set. That would alleviate a lot of disharmony in the county. And I think that's what our main issue in this county is. We have people that believe in conspiracies, whether they're reality or not. It's a perception. Another thing that I really didn't want to speak about tonight, but it came up, it's pretty prevalent right now, is fracking. I appreciate the fact that you guys are looking into it, but I would caution you to look at it as not fracking encompassing drilling for petroleum and drilling for natural gas. Drilling for oil is a total different practice than it is drilling for oil. It's apples and cannonballs. If it's a revenue issue for this county, which I believe has something to do with it, maybe we need to look at our comprehensive plan that you guys signed last year. Now in there it talks about economic development. And I've heard a lot of talk about that over the past year, but there's no strategic plan in place on how to get there, and when to recognize we've already achieved it. So maybe that's something that the board needs to look into just as much as it does with fracking. We need to get rid of this debt. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bush.
Evening again, Barbara Wagner, Sequoia Lane, James Monroe District. I was coming up with just a quick ask, but I also had a suggestion for perhaps an issue that the email thing that's come up. I believe in the last meeting it was expressed that some of your constituents are used to reaching you through a particular email. It's perfectly capable, and I'm sure you have IT folks that can do this, that will forward all the mail that they send to that address to your county address. Therefore, it's open and transparent, and for the sake of harmony in the county, would it not be an easy fix just to do something like this so that everything's foyable, everything's open, and there's no drama in that situation? And my other quick ask was I would wonder if you would consider perhaps making the Board of Supervisors meetings to begin at 7 as opposed to 6, so that more of our county could be here, as many of our people commute from DC, Maryland, Richmond, and would like to be here, but 6 o'clock just is not a feasible time for most. And that's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My name is Rodney Rollins. I live on Little Ferry Road in the Dahlgren District of King George County. I'm here in reference to our emergency services that this county provides. And to our board members, thank you for stepping up to the plate to realize that we have some deficiencies and we're trying to correct them. But as a retired firefighter from Baltimore County, I've learned real quick that emergency services business is an expensive business. And at this time, I would like to thank Chief Mooney for his effort in getting these grants to provide the equipment and the services that we need. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rollins. Anyone else? Now I'll close this meeting and come back to reports from members of the board. Mrs. Sisson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I'd like to offer my report, and then I'll address some of the comments from tonight's public comment period. First, I'd like to thank everyone for being here. We've got weather that's certainly not typical for Virginia. I think it was 3 degrees is what my thermometer registered this morning on the way to work. So appreciate you coming out in the cold, and certainly do appreciate your involvement. I attended the Fire and Rescue Annual Awards Ceremony on Friday the 10th. Just great to see all the service there. Mr. Rollins, appreciate you pointing out the service of the folks in Fire and Rescue. It was great to see them recognized that evening, both our career and our volunteer folks. That was held at Company 3. And if you've attended some of our prior meetings, you may have seen that we're doing some upgrades to that Company 3 building and working on the staffing as well there in Fairview Beach. And that facility is really looking great. Now we'll get the staffing up to where it needs to be and can really provide service from that facility. So really appreciate all the work that Jimmy Pennington and the folks in Fire and Rescue have done to really make that a nice facility for a very small sum. It's true cost savings to our citizens for what's been done there. Monday the 13th, I attended the King George Chamber of Commerce meeting. Was held by the Dahlgren Heritage Museum, or hosted by the Dahlgren Heritage Museum. I appreciate the opportunity to attend that. On Thursday the 16th, attended the Military Affairs Council representing this board, and then I also participated in the Board of Directors meeting for the King George Family YMCA that same day. One question for us, Mr. Chairman, if we could get County Administrator to give us an update on the progress of the renovations at Potomac Elementary School. I appreciate that. I know they're about in the process of moving from the trailers, at least part of them, back into the school. So.
They are. How about the next meeting? I'll get it.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I wasn't trying to request it tonight, but if we could get that.
That'd be great.
I've just been watching that progress closely. I know they're about ready to move, so it's a chance for us to get in there and see how far that's come. That's all I have from our prepared remarks, but I'd like to talk about the public comment this evening. First, the fracking issue is one I think that should concern all of us, and I think the public concern is well warranted. There's a lot of education that needs to go on at all levels. As far as I can tell so far from this board, there are there's no one here from this board advocating it or serving as a fan. I, for one, have significant concerns. I spoke to a number of citizens. I know some of you are here tonight over the weekend, and had a chance to share my thoughts. There's certainly some engineering challenges that need to be addressed, and I think we can have an opportunity. We'll only have any vote on what goes on in King George. So we're trying to make sure that our ordinance is tight enough so that we can make that land use decision here. It was mentioned about the authority or the power of the regulatory agency that is MM&E. So we want to hear from them directly about where they stand and what they think their role is. So we'll have a chance to do that. They're gracious enough to come. But I think we also have to influence the General Assembly and MM&E to put controls in place for areas where we may not have the ability to make the decision. King George is 183 square miles. There are counties and areas all around us that are drawn from the same basin that could still have the same impact. So we have to make sure that we help tighten that up. And then I think from a county perspective, in addition to the concerns relative to the environment, there are concerns that I have relative to character. The character of the county. So preserving that rural character is something that we have made a prominent part of our comprehensive plan on purpose, and it's certainly something that's very near and dear to my heart. And as comments tonight pointed out, that this King George County is we appreciate what we have here, and we want to preserve that. I know fracking from an engineering perspective has been done successfully in some places. In those places, they've gone from a very few people to a whole lot real quick, and that concerns me as much as the other pieces. So I think I offer all of that to know so that you understand that we do have a lot of concern here. I certainly have a lot of concern about this, and I want to make sure that we have the controls in place for this board to be able to make that land use decision, and then that we're providing the future boards that opportunity as well. And so we're going to get a report from the county attorney tonight that shows where we're at. It shows that we've got some good things going on relative to where we're at with our ordinance. It also shows that we've probably got a couple areas that we need to tighten up a little bit. So we'll do that. Mr. Atkinson, you mentioned about the public comment. Certainly appreciate you being here and offering that public comment this evening, and always welcome that. Mr. Trout, I wanted to address your comments. I don't recall accusing you of lying, but what I did accuse you of being is wrong. Because your comments were, ma'am, you had a chance to talk, and now it's my turn.
You're a liar.
So,
You're on video.
well,
Ma'am,
my intent was not to call you a liar. I'm not done.
Ma'am, this is not time for your debate. You had your comment. Please
My
contain
intent,
yourself.
my intent was not to call you a liar. My intent was to let you know that we're independent of the source of the email or where it goes. The Freedom of Information Act applies to the business that we do. So there was no connection to a particular email address and where that goes. I've been on the board, like I said, this is my 11th year. Your question about my email account's the first one I've ever had in that amount of time. So if the majority of the 24,000 citizens of King George County find that to be of concern, then I'm certainly willing to address that. For one citizen who provides a motivation that is false and incorrect, then I'm not willing to do that. But I wanted to make sure we made that clear. So. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On January the 10th, I attended the ribbon-cutting ceremony for a new business in King George, Rockin' Ron's Barbecue, located in the Food Lion Shopping Center in Dahlgren, where Krabby Oyster used to be. We got to sample the food, meet the owners, and wish them the best of luck with their new business. Thanks to Linwood Thomas for organizing the event and staff for their support. And I hope it works out for them. I took a sandwich back for lunch, and it was good. It was real good. Later that evening, I attended the Fire and Rescue and Emergency Services Annual Awards Ceremony, which was held at Station 3 in Fairview Beach. It always amazes me to hear about the amount of training hours invested, the number of calls members have run, the services the department has provided to citizens of King George, the grants received, the equipment either purchased or upgraded, and the dedication by all members to keeping King George safe. It was also gratifying to learn that there were no call-related fatalities during the year. Now, Chief Moody presented an extensive list of accomplishments that I think everyone in the county should be aware of. Perhaps we can ask him to make a presentation at a board meeting. This is an organization that we should all be very proud of. We also got a tour of the refurbished fire station, which will house 6 paid personnel for 24/7 coverage for Fairview Beach and the surrounding area. This will go a long way to provide fire and emergency services to the western part of the county, something that has been lacking for way too long. On January the 15th, I attended the board meeting of the Rappahannock Area Agency on Aging. There is a fair amount of work to do, as this seems to be an agency in transition. I was presented with a strategic plan, which I deemed to be a one-year action plan, because everything had to be done this year. We do need to have a 5-year strategic plan to chart the course of the agency, but we also need to accomplish the goals that we have for this year. The action plan calls for evaluating existing programs, markets, and opportunities, defining a niche, accomplishing new programs with additional funds, developing a new business model, identifying 3 potential new funding streams, determining viable services, developing a new name, logo, and collateral materials to advance our AAA visibility, information technology, which is limited currently, efficiencies in organization and program operation, hiring and staff retention, and accounting software. So that one is going to be some work. And I was elected Secretary Treasurer. Maybe it's a King George tradition, I don't know. John had it last 4 years. On January 16th, I attended the King George Family YMCA Board of Directors meeting. We start our meetings with a mission impact story. Some person or families that have been impacted by participating in Y activities. In this case, it was a young girl who was born without one of her hands. And she wanted to swim, but the family couldn't afford the family rate. When the Y found out, they contacted the parents and determined what they could afford, and the Y made up the difference. That money comes solely from our fundraisers and private donors and from businesses. All of the money that we raise is put directly back into the community to benefit the citizens. That's how we were able to participate in the Shop with the Sheriff, Bright Beginnings. That's how we taught all the second graders in Potomac Elementary to swim this year. It's part of our pledge to never turn anyone away because of money. There are some fundraisers coming up. Casino Night is Saturday, March the 8th, and the second annual Y Golf Tournament is in May. Not too soon to plan on participating in these events to ensure that we have the funds to cover whatever needs that may occur. Contact a Y or a board member for information on those. Today, I attended the Regional Jail Authority meeting along with Sheriff Dempsey and Mr. Kusenberry. Meeting centered around the annual audit report and the fiscal year 15 budget request. I understand a modest increase budgeted for King George. I plan on visiting the jail for an orientation briefing and tour, and that's being set up for me by Sheriff Dempsey. I too would like to thank everyone for coming tonight. It's good to get citizen input. I too came to King George for a quality of life, although it was 40 plus years ago. And we'll do whatever we need to do to maintain it. Fracking, I agree. We need to look at both sides of it. We need to hear from the mines, and we need to hear from those who have actually experienced it. And I'm sure we'll do that. We'll do our homework. We'll make sure we make the right decision. Now, I have directed, I did hear just, and I don't know if I heard it wrong or not, but I don't get emails at my office. No, listen, I've directed staff to direct all of my emails to my county email. So I don't get any county emails at my office. Occasionally, a citizen will send me an email on my home one, and that's fine. I've had the same email address for a long, long time. So, but if it comes here, or if I get an email, I've directed staff to send it through the county, and I review it every night. So That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Ms. Bravo?
I'd like to compliment you, Mr. Howard, on the details you provided on your reports from your meetings, and I do appreciate it.
Thank you.
On the 9th, Bill Roby and I conducted an information town hall at the request of numerous Bayberry residents. It was definitely a worthwhile event to help residents understand the process for a rezoning request. It was enlightening to me to realize the number of people who do not understand the public hearing process. I believe this would be a good idea for a yearly workshop. On the 10th, I was not able to attend the Potomac Watershed Council meeting due to the unsafe road conditions to the west of us. I did attend the ribbon-cutting ceremony for Smokey Ron's Barbecue. It's always great to see another new business open up in the Dahlgren District. That evening, I attended the King George Fire Rescue Award ceremony. I would like to mention that I did notice that the rehab unit the ladies' auxiliary made possible was not mentioned in Chief Moody's list of accomplishments. This unit will be utilized when the personnel need to be on site for an extended period of time. And I was very pleased to see that the gentleman who is nicknamed Mr. Do Not Resuscitate was actually awarded the CPR save. So don't get concerned because of the nickname. On the 13th, I attended the King George Chamber meeting hosted by the Dahlgren Museum. The newly elected leadership of the Chamber is very energized and full of new ideas to grow their membership and better define their mission. It is always a wonderful thing to see the doors of the museum open, as each time this happens, it means they are one step closer to achieving their goals. Beginning February 15th, the museum will be open the third Saturday of every month from noon until 4 p.m. I highly encourage you to take the time to stop by and see the exhibit. On the 15th, I attended the Dahlgren Museum meeting. Once again, the Dahlgren Heritage Foundation will provide buses for the students of King George County schools to attend the Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math Expo in D.C. Planning is already underway for the German Christmas Market fundraiser, which will be held in November. My next town hall meeting is Wednesday, January 29th at the University of Mary Washington Dahlgren campus from 7 to 9 p.m. I would like to extend a personal invitation to my colleagues, the county administrator, and the county attorney to attend, as Pablo Cuevas from the Rockingham County Board of Supervisors has agreed to be a guest speaker, along with his deputy county administrator, to share their experiences and lessons learned by visiting actual fracking communities in West Virginia. I would like to make a motion to reappoint Mr. Bill Roby as the Dahlgren representative to the Planning Commission.
Second.
Motion's been made and probably seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
I would like to, I know a lot of times people leave after the board report. I would just let you know, even though Department of Mines and Minerals and Energy is not giving their presentation tonight, the county attorney will still be discussing our zoning ordinances relative to fracking as tonight is his report back. I will actually be hearing the Department of Mines and Mineral presentation in Lancaster County on Monday night, so hopefully that will not be a problem. And I also want to let you know that I did talk with Eldon James yesterday relative to the state code and whether or not the interpretation is correct that currently for gas and oil there is no limit on the withdrawal amounts for groundwater unless the county can prove that it would be detrimental. So it seems like the burden would be on us to prove that in order to set a limit. So that may be something the county attorney would look into for us. I would like to take a moment to correct the record. I sent an email to my newsletter distribution list and posted the same on my supervisor Facebook page. It was brought to my attention by an employee of the Journal that there was intent to print it as a letter to the editor. I stated that I would not be comfortable with that, as I had not submitted it as such, nor was that the intent. Despite my comments, the publisher of the Journal chose to print my email as though it were a letter to the editor anyway. And then the following week, the publisher of the Journal made excuses for that action by making references to receiving it via email. Well, she signed up for my newsletter distribution list, so of course she received it, just as she's received everything else that I send out to that distribution list. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of you who have called and written in support following the election of chairman and vice chairman. You have re-energized me to continue focusing on what I must do in order to be your voice in 2014 and beyond. I will continue to keep you engaged through Facebook and newsletters, by collaborating with you at town hall meetings, and by demonstrating my support of citizen initiatives to address challenges facing our county. No matter what, I am still going to ensure your voice is heard. The same respect the Dahlgren residents have shown me as their elected official, they in turn deserve the same respect from this entire board. I encourage each resident to communicate your questions and concerns to your supervisor. As we begin a new year, I envision a productive board, one that our citizens can boast proudly of as we work together for the benefit of King George. We can decide right here and now to address the problems alluded to in the Freelance Star editorial and expressed to me by my constituents. I would hope we would all agree to ensure that all residents of King George are fairly represented and considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bravo. Mr. Brooks?
Mr. Chairman, the first thing I want to say, I think Mr. Brown is here tonight, and I think VDOT did a terrible job yesterday in King George County. The roads in King George were terrible. You go to Caroline, the road was clear. You go over to Maryland, the roads were clear. Coming out of Westmoreland, the roads were clear. But in King George, it was snow covered and terrible. And we told you this last year when we had a snowstorm and the roads were terrible again from VDOT. But this time it looked like VDOT didn't do anything. The roads this morning were totally white, and you see state trucks sitting outside the road. So I can't understand that. Maybe when you come to your report later, you'll give us an update on that. But that's the second time King George has been hit with a snowstorm and VDOT didn't deliver like they should. And it's hurting the school system because the schools can't go back in. They've been out all week now. They probably won't go back until Monday because of the back roads. And during the day, look like to me, I'm not an expert on how you scrape the roads, but when the roads have, the temperature has risen, look like the trucks will be then on the back roads trying to scrape that stuff off and put some salt on there. But it is a bad situation, and I got a lot of calls on that. And I just want to bring it to your attention again, because none of the other board members have said anything about it, but I'm sure they had issues with it as well. Mr. Chairman, we keep hearing about the dishwasher, but I was under the impression that the superintendent was to come back to this board if he was not able to work up enough money in his budget to get the dishwasher. But we haven't heard anything from the superintendent, if my knowledge. But I support, if we need a dishwasher, we need to get the school a dishwasher, but we're waiting on for direction from the superintendent. Also, Mr. Chairman, there's an email that's floating around out there from Senator Stewart in reference to being confused on how this board stands on the resolution that the board adopted in reference to more citizen input for VDOT projects. Mr. Chairman, can you clear the air on that? Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, I'll address that in my report.
Okay. Just want to bring that up for consideration. Also, we'd like to reappoint Ms. Christine Stepp to the library board as a trustee from the Shiloh district.
I'd second that.
Motion's been made and probably seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks.
Mr. Chairman, if I could have a nickel back. The reason, I got 2 emails at my office, and as soon as I got those, I called and said, don't send me emails at my office. That's when I directed staff not to do that, because that's not the place to send an email. You send it on the county email server. So I just wanted to clarify that. That's the reason that I made that call. That's the reason that the 2 individuals who sent me an email, I called and said, please don't send me an email at my office. There's another place for that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Mr. Brooks, let me address your issue. I had received a call from Quentin Elliott from VDOT asking about our resolution. I provided him a copy of the resolution. I said the resolution, in my mind, spoke clearly on what the board voted was. We wanted that VDOT to include more public comment and opportunity, especially when there's a change in a project, and that we did not specifically address or ask for legislation. And the resolution speaks for itself, and that's publicly available to everybody. And Senator Stewart came back to me and asked me if that meant that we were asking him to remove a bill, and I said, look, from my opinion, you've got the resolution, and you can ask the others for what they want to do, but I didn't see that we needed to legislate every change when we could have people sit down and make the changes and get it done. I thought it was all about results, so that's what I did. But I didn't speak for the board, I spoke for Joe Grzyka as myself.
So, Mr. Chairman, will Mr. Senator Stewart know that he should go ahead and submit the bill as was?
I have no idea, he didn't reply to me.
He submitted it yesterday.
Okay. Because it seemed like he was confused at first. That's fine.
So, I mean, I think that cleared it up for him.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. On the email issue, I asked staff when they have emails for me to send it to my office. My office knows about it, and they also send it to my county account, so there's a copy on my county account. And I do the same when I reply, or if I get emails from other people, I send it back to my county account. I try to keep that all clean because I like everything on the county account. On the fracking, there's now an inference to financial aspects. I have to tell you, that's the first I've heard of it because that's nothing that we've looked at. We look at it as an issue. And if it's like anything else that has to do with mining, the county doesn't get much money if there is any. If we look at sand and gravel, we get zero. So it's not something that is driving a decision. I've been researching it like I think most of you have, and I think you can agree that there's a lot of conflicting information out there. You got both sides of the arguments, and sorting out truth from fiction is always interesting. And at this point, there is no application for a permit that I know of. So we're working through the process today to make sure, as Ms. Brabo indicated, we're going to hear from county attorney that our ordinances are as tight as they can be. There is some work that needs to be done. And then we're going to hear from the state agencies and work with our state delegation because the General Assembly really holds the keys to what's going to happen from the whole issue when we're all concerned about that aquifer. Unfortunately, that aquifer doesn't know boundaries. So if in fact we stop the fracking in King George, that may not solve any problem if they do it in another adjacent county because it would still affect the aquifer, and that's the water we all drink. And that's a primary concern. I mean, that's one of our main concerns as we look at issues is the safety and the criticality. There's no amount of money that's going to change that. So I just want you all to know that that's where this board is. We plan to get that information, and then we're going to hold a town meeting for some of the same presentations again and a collection of the data that we have and take input. But that's a process. So you ask us to do it, and we're doing it. It just takes a little time, and it won't happen tomorrow. So let us go through the process. We're doing it all in public, and stay on top of it. And we'll keep you apprised when we have the town meeting. I'd ask if somebody would nominate Chris Cox for another term on the Planning Commission. His expires in February.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and properly seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Now I have some prepared remarks, and I try to put out some educational pieces as a chair when I take the seat, and that's what I have in tonight's report, so let me get on with that. I just wanted to take a couple of minutes and touch upon a couple items to just refresh and clarify a couple items. First, the purpose of our regular board meetings. These are business meetings for the board to conduct the business of the county as a governing body, and they're conducted in public to allow the citizens to witness and observe. It is not a town hall or community meeting. We can schedule and hold those as we see fit. As part of our business meetings, we may have public hearings. These are specific, legally required hearings, and there is a time allocated to take public comment on the subject of the hearing at that time. Personally, I listen to the input to determine if perspectives or issues I had not considered or brought up. I do not use the public inputs during these hearings as a scorecard to determine my vote. I typically have researched and discussed the item prior to the hearing and have a preliminary position coming into the hearing, since we never know if or what public input we may get. As part of the meetings, we have a public comment period. This is a time for our citizens to address the board with issues or concerns they may have. It is a time we take their input. It is not a debate, nor will we engage in back and forth. These inputs are received and may or may not be addressed at that meeting, however. I know I, as well as my fellow board members, use these inputs as appropriate to either impact the issues raised or take actions to address. We value the inputs and appreciate everyone who provides them. We all get other public input on a continuum via phone, emails, chats in the grocery store, or wherever we meet in the county. As your representatives, we use your inputs and have to make decisions for the county, and every 4 years an opportunity to either continue or change direction through the election process is provided to our constituents. Elections are truly the only true measure of the public's evaluation of our performance. As for my activities since the last meeting, I attended the LEPC meeting on the 9th of January. Our LEPC, Local Emergency Planning Committee, is an active and proactive organization. It is also one of the few in the region that is active and is playing a key role in the evaluation of a regional LEPC concept being studied. I was unable to attend a voting machine demo due to the schedule conflicts on the 9th of January. On the 10th of January in the afternoon, I attended the ribbon cutting for Smoke and Rob's Barbecue family-owned small business in the Dahlgren area. We wish them the best and enjoyed the barbecue samples they provided. That evening, I attended the annual Fire and Rescue Award event at Company 3 in Fairview Beach. It was personally rewarding to see how far our fire and rescue professionals have come in melding the paid and volunteer professional force into a unified team. It was a great program, and we as a county are indebted to these women and men who keep us safe and are there for us in time of emergency. On the 13th, I attended the executive committee meeting of the UMW Board of Visitors, and following that meeting, I attended the Board of Directors meeting of the Fredericksburg Regional Alliance. On the 15th of January, I attended meetings of two of the committees of the Rappahannock United Way. On the 16th, I attended the meeting of the Military Affairs Board of Directors, and tonight we were supposed to get an opportunity to see the new fire truck, and that didn't happen, and we'll reschedule that because of the weather. The scheduling for this meeting, we scheduled it. Typically, it would be the Wednesday following the Tuesday meeting, if we're going to delay it. But talking with the county administrator, we determined that given and this was 10 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday, making the decision with the forecast that we had for a lot more snow. That given the parking lot and the safety concern and the travel distances that people have, not only our residents but our staff, that we pushed it out to today to give some more time to make sure we had a safe environment for people to come to the meeting. So thank you. At this time, I'll entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda as it's been presented to us.
Motion's been made and properly seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The chair votes aye. Motion carries. Any constitutional officers need to report? Seeing none, I'll report the county attorney on the local zoning ordinance concerning oil and gas drilling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple of other items as well that I just want to bring up briefly. I'll take care of that, and then we can get into what I believe most people are interested in. The Board of Equalization has requested that 2 additional candidates be recommended for appointment to serve as alternates. So please take that under advisement and consider that and who might be suitable to serve in those positions, and we can discuss that further if you like. As you know, the General Assembly is ongoing at present, and I will be providing regular updates on legislation affecting local governments generally and King George County specifically as may be warranted. I've already sent some of that to you as well. So please review those and let me know if you have questions. We do have resources at our disposal in addition to our legislative delegation, of course. Eldon James with Eldon James Associates serves as legislative liaison through the GWRC, and he's readily accessible and can provide information. In fact, he's already provided reports to me, and I've shared some of that information with you. Specific legislation of note There's a few bills out there that I'd like to draw your specific attention to. HB 371, addressing B-pole license taxes. That's would affect the way that local B-pole taxes are calculated. Right now, local governments have an option to apply those to gross receipts or net income, and we would, if they, the bill would require local governments to calculate those taxes based upon net income. We make those calculations on gross receipts at present, as do most of the other counties in Virginia. If that were changed, it would severely impact local budgets. So I want to bring that to your attention.
There's also another issue there, and I spoke with Delegate Cole a couple years ago when he introduced that the first time around. How to get the net income is very difficult because companies, corporations don't calculate income based on jurisdiction. They do it on a state level income tax or federal level income tax. We have no local income tax, so there's no real easy way to get to that number. So that's another concern with that we should make sure gets put into the process.
Absolutely.
And I think the other, on a more generic level, is how do we, how we as a board are going to come with board positions that we're going to push forward on this legislation in a timely manner, because it can't be individuals. I may have a different opinion than Mr. Brooks or Ms. Brabo, and so how are we going to address that piece is something to think about. We have time for the crossover. You know, there is time to get in our inputs. And so I think you need to look at those that have a specific impact and make sure they get to us and they become items for the board to develop the consensus.
Mr. Chairman, perhaps it would be wise to bring in an Eldon and Eric to a work session.
The problem is getting
proceeds.
Eldon during the session is not going to happen.
I get one evening.
In the interest of time, Mr. Chairman, if I might, I provide information to you regularly. Perhaps if certain issues are of greater, of course, you're always at liberty to contact the legislative delegation yourselves individually. But if one or more of you believe a particular piece of legislation warrants greater attention, board attention, to develop a consensus around, let us know, talk to your fellow board members, and then certainly we can develop something and move forward.
I would say the B-poll for sure.
Yeah, I agree on the B-poll as well. I mean, that's one that we should oppose for the inordinate amount of income impact on our revenues it's going to have, and then the lack of any clear way of identifying the net income piece that they talk about. I mean, at the end of the day, I think that the way B-poll is done is not a good way.
Right.
However, it's been around for so long, and it's integral to our budget and our revenue stream right now. Unless they want to come up with a way to remove that and replace it with some other income source that's reliable, I don't see how we get by. And this is typical that happens. It's an emotional, has a lot of merit when you listen to one side of the argument, but they need to make sure they understand the other, because at the end of the day, it comes back to the citizens having to pay for that. And right now, we're trying to balance that and get some of the revenue out of the businesses that are in our counties as part of the citizen base, and should contribute to the process.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the interest of time, I'll set aside any other matters, but I'll leave it to you to contact me with questions or further direction, and I will certainly continue to consult with Eldon James and others through the LGA and VACO to bring to your attention matters of potential concern. Yes, sir.
I just, maybe as a suggestion, we're getting the capital updates and the updates from Eric and this type of thing. If we see something that we feel should maybe be considered by the entire board as a suggestion, then maybe we send that to you, Mr. Chairman. And obviously if you and that person have consensus, then you could send it out to everyone and say, hey, 2 of us have consensus on this. What do the rest of you think?
It's a great idea. That's a great idea. I think that's, so as you go through and you get stuff, if there's an issue that you want to have the board polled, so we can get back to Eric, contact me and I'll poll everybody and get their inputs.
That's just to make sure we do that in a way that's proper to gain that consensus.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I mean, yeah, it puts me on the seat to make sure that I'm.
You're reaching out separately.
Right, and I'll do that.
That makes sense.
Right.
I had a question about the Board of Equalization, if I could.
Mm-hmm.
Eric, you mentioned the request for 2 alternate seats there, and there's a certain makeup required of that body. How do we fit the alternates into that? So is the person that wouldn't be there at the particular time, an alternate set in, would they have to match the?
Just for background, the BOE has to
So folks understand what I'm talking about. That you have to have a certain number of folks with a real estate background, certain with
Assessment.
assessors. I mean, there's a whole slew of criteria folks have to have on that board, and let's make sure that if we're going to bring alternates forward, that we know what we're doing with that.
That's correct. Presently, the BOE as appointed has 5 members. 30% of the membership have to be either real estate assessors, real estate brokers, a lawyer, I believe somebody with a financial background. 30% of that board has to meet that criteria. As consummated now, they meet those qualifications. I believe actually at least 4 of the members meet those qualifications, so we're well above the 30% threshold. The alternates would be helpful if they had those qualifications as well, although because we're above the 30% threshold already, I believe no matter how it worked out, we probably, no matter how the board considering a certain decision, we should be able to meet that 30% threshold. It's hard to come up with a makeup of the board that would not meet those qualifications in any given case. If it ever were a problem,